Just come on over, make sure, because you know how I get.
Okay, yeah, we're fine.
You can take these, of course, a couple out.
Yeah.
All right, we're good?
Yep.
All right.
I get in these chairs, and I keep shrinking I keep shrinking. I start out at 5'2", and I'm down for something. It's terrible.
Okay. Can you tell me your name, your age, and who you are?
My name is Joan Ann Spaldo. I am 85 years old, and I guess who I am, I guess I would call myself a retired school teacher, parishioner of Corpus Christi Parish, and active in a lot of things around town.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I started out in Brooklyn, New York, moved to Cornwall-on-the-Hudson, New York, then to Newark, and finally to Hasbrook Heights. And when we came to Hasbrook Heights, it was the 8th grade at Corpus Christi.
So how long would you have lived here then?
I guess it's about 44 years.
Since 44?
No,
more
no.
than, yeah. Like 64 maybe. Or there were,
No.
Well, I would have to do the math. About
70
yes.
something. 77 maybe.
Can you describe what the community was like where you grew up?
Well, Hasbrook Heights was a quiet town, much less traffic, lots of space to play in and grow up in. It was very different from the way it is now. I always compare, that was a small country town, and now we are in a busy suburb of New York.
Can you describe your education experiences in the schools you went to?
Well, starting here in Hasbrook Heights in the 8th grade, it was Corpus Christi was the school I went to. It was a small school. You only had 8 classes, and classes would be 20 some children in each class. It was a small school, and we had the sisters from Morristown, the charity nuns, who taught us, and maybe 1 or 2 teachers. It was close-knit, and we had lots of time to get to know each other and play. And I don't know what else you'd want to know about it. Yeah, I have fond memories of it. It was very nice. And then when I graduated from the 8th grade, I went to high school in St. Mary's in Rutherford, and that was a nice experience. You know, taking the bus to Rutherford and having activities from the high school. We had gone back to the school. The teachers were very interested in us, and we got to know children from Euclid and Lincoln, who were the public school children, which was a nice little country community.
How has that changed over the years, do you think?
Well, right now, education has changed in general. It's many more children in each group, but they get to do things that we never dreamed of, computerized, all that kind of thing. In some ways, I don't like the way it's changed. I'd like to see some things different. I think the children have too much time with their nose in those machines, and little children are rushed into education. I think they don't give the children enough time to play on their own. I mean, when I started teaching school in kindergarten, children played a great deal, but I think they need that, and that they're missing it.
What do you miss most about the way it used to be here?
The space, mainly the space. I just, you know, you had plenty of places to go sleigh riding, and even there were roller skating. It was, there's just too many cars now. Very few cars back when I was a child here. And I'd like to see us with more space, but we'll never get it. It was a small country town, now it is a suburb of New York.
Yeah. Do you remember any, like, important people from town when you were young? Or people that stick out in your mind?
People who came from here, I remember being told that Frank Sinatra lived here, and I remember walking over to his house and looking at the notes written on his garage door. Also, Arthur Godfrey was another famous person that came from here, and he would even come back. And I think his mother was an organist in one of the churches. Let's see, anybody else? Some of the small town people that I remember would be the mayor when I came here, who was named Mayor Dominic. And Mayor Dominic was the kind of mayor that would go around, he would tip his hat to the ladies as he walked around the town. And then we had an organist, musician, music teacher, named Madame Raphaeline Dejani. And she was a very active part of the community because she would not only teach children music, but in the schools she would put in programs as if she were doing a Broadway show. And she would work with teenagers and put on shows. And there was a building which is now the elementary primary school of Corpus Christi. It was a community center, and it had a stage, and it was a theater-like place, and she would put on shows there. So I remember Madam a great deal. And let's see, who else would I remember in town? That's terrible. I should remember some more people besides those. But they don't come up now.
Do you remember any stories or legends about Hasbrook Heights?
Not really, when it comes to legends. They don't come up. My computer isn't working.
Do you remember where you used to shop when you were younger and how far they were from your house?
Well, all of the grocery shopping, vegetables, meat markets, that type of thing, we had right on the boulevard. So you could really just walk to the store. Although some people had cars, but if you didn't have a car, they would deliver it. In other words, you'd go to the store and they'd pick out everything you want, and it would be delivered to your house. Also, there was a closest for me, especially with Lodi, and the main street of Lodi has disappeared. But they had all kinds of, because I'm Italian, and there were very many good Italian stores in Lodi. So I would go down to Lodi to shop. So those are the two places. Now, for other types of shopping, like clothing, and Hackensack was a big, big shopping street. Main Street was all kinds of shops, New York department stores, and so a lot of shopping went on there. But having come from New York, I would get on that New York bus, which was on the boulevard, and we would go shopping in New York. Christmas shopping was, or Newark. Newark also had a closeness to the town. So those were the places that I would have shopped.
What street did you live on when you moved to Hasbrook?
Same one I'm on now, Central Avenue, right down
Okay.
the street.
All right.
And that's
How has that changed over time?
It's changed the same way the rest of the town has. People cannot afford to keep space because taxes have grown so that now when a house was on a big space, now they will subdivide that. So we're getting to be a town of 50 by 100 or 150, and that changes things because there's just no space. I mean, when I moved to Central Avenue, across the street was an empty lot. Down on one side, both sides, there were empty lots. So there was plenty of places to play. And children don't have that now. That's why they have to go to the park. The parks become very important because that's the only place they have space. And
Now, since you moved to Heights in '44, the high school wasn't built yet. Do you remember what was on that property?
there was a big open space behind there. I know going across one section, we had something which had been a sewer or something, and so nothing was built in that spot. But, yeah, it was a little space. And, yeah, I tried. It's funny because one of the things I feel bad about is women, even young girls, we wore heels. And you don't go walking in heels. And now women wear sneakers and carry a bag with their shoes. When they get there, they have the shoes to change to. So even going back and forth to New York, right, you'd come home so tired with your feet that you want to take your shoes off and walk down the street in bare feet.
Yeah. Any particular stores on the boulevard that you remember? I know you said that everything we need
Well,
to get, but where did you shop? What stores?
One has lasted all these years is our bakery. We had a grocery store, which was on the boulevard, which had a meat market, a fruit and vegetable section, grocery section, all in one store. It was like a little small, old-time department store, supermarket. Then we had big hardware store. We had all kinds of specialty stores. I'm trying to think back to. Little places to eat that were there now. We're rediscovering that now, but there were places like that then. See a store that I miss. A&P was a big supermarket company that started out with small kind of stores, and I think we had one of those.
How about the industry that surrounded Heights, whether it was Bendix or Curtis Wright? How did that affect the town?
Well, it seemed much farther away than it is now. I mean, now the space where they were is like, your backyard. But it seemed farther away. So growing up as a young person, you didn't see it. Now you see these areas all the time, but the thing you did see was the people who worked there. You knew the certain neighbors worked in these places.
You said you taught at Corpus Christi?
No, I taught in Teaneck.
Oh, okay, all
And
right.
Hasbrook Heights didn't want me as a
Uh-oh.
teacher. You know, when you went interviewing,
Mhm.
I always laughed because the superintendent would ask you certain questions and you knew whether you were gonna get the job there or not. But I was hired by Teaneck and it was close enough, but not that close because I took 2 buses to get there.
Wow.
Until finally I was able to buy a car, and then it got down to about half hour. Now you get on the highway and you're there in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Although if you hit the traffic hour, you're 2 hours.
Mhm, right, right.
So, yeah, no, but I guess I got to know Hasbrook Heights people and the schools, but they were always smaller. I was in a big system, so it was more like a city system, whereas Hasbrook Heights, the schools were small. And it's funny that they're both still in the same place, Euclid and Lincoln.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed that much to me. Even Corpus Christi that I went to, the part that I went to hasn't changed that much, but they've grown, expanded so much that then it's changed.
Yeah. When you did move here, even though in 8th grade, where did you play?
Played out on, you could play on the street, that was one thing. It was snow time. It's funny now, streets are the first place that's nothing there.
Mm.
But it seems as though when I was a child, if the snow came, you could sleigh ride on the streets for quite a while. And then there were certain streets that were special all the time. The streets from Terrace Avenue going down towards the highways, wonderful for sleigh riding. So that was quite a big thing. Then in backyards, I mean, there would be, for instance, on my street, right across the way was a big empty lot. And the men put a horseshoe thing. It wasn't even their property, but it was, if you wanted to play the horseshoes, it was always there. Lots of, as I said, lots of space that children create playgrounds of their own.
Well, how about, I mean, you mentioned Mayor Dominic. How about over the time, the government of Hasbrook Heights? Do you remember any other mayors? Or?
I've been very pleased with the government of Hasbrook Heights.
Okay.
I'm bad with names, but I actually got involved with the council because my neighbor, Tom Milley, got me involved with that, and he said his partner, who was a county elected official, wanted to retire, would I take it? And so I joined the Bergen County and actually ran for the office and have done that.
Okay.
But I'm very pleased with many of the people that we've had that have, the last mayor, before the one we have now, Rose Heck. Rose Heck was a wonderful mayor and did wonderful things for the town, and still does, even though she's, but I'm trying to think of.
How about police, fire?
Fire department has always been a good working fire department. I've always, I whenever they talk about joining forces with other towns, I said, I want to know the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they've always done, and they've always been volunteering.
Yeah.
They're wonderful for volunteering, the emergency Um, the police department, I'm trying to think of some of the names that come up. There was one fellow who was, when I came here, it was still World War II, and many of the people that were adults who were at that, in my earliest part of my life, they were former service people, and many of them became policemen. We had one particular young man that I remember coming home from the war and became a policeman, and then a head of the police department. So we've always had a good police department.
Okay. Now you mentioned the war. How did Hasbroukites celebrate the end of it? Did they have a parade or?
When everybody went outside and cheered and got on buses and went places and celebrated. I don't remember a parade. I just remember all these spontaneous things that people did.
All right, is there anything else that you could think of that we didn't ask?
Well, not really, but this town has always been, it was very, very neighborly and friendly, and that one of the things it still has to this day, you still have neighborhoods that are close and helpful to each other. And I know we used to have block parties where the people in the street police would block off the street, and then they could have a big party in the summertime to have a celebration, and that brings a closeness. And Christmas time too, visiting and partying in each other's homes at Christmas time has gone up.
And even townwide events. I mean, the Heights certainly keeps up traditions.
Yes,
So.
yes, we have. I think the street fair that they have is a wonderful thing. And the parades.
Yeah.
They do a wonderful job with the parades. And so it has maintained a real friendliness.
All right. Well, if ever in the future we would like to have you back, would you come back?
Surely.
All right.
Surely.
All right. So any other questions that you have? You're good? All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.